Michael Kelsch with Zamazenta beating Tropagos in the finals over Joji Kaeda.
Oh, Michael won?
Yeah, Michael ended up winning.
I know he was the runner-up at Worlds in Regulation D.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool to
And
see that he's
then
continuing the streak that he's been on. That's just an invite to Worlds.
Yeah. He also ended up having a couple of strong GC challenges, I believe, a couple of strong regionals, and now he ends up taking, I think this is one of the last EU regionals, but yeah, he takes the title with Zamazenta. So what does that make you think about the format in general with, Miradon winning the first tournament? We had a couple special events where I believe Koraidon won once. What are your thoughts on the format right now?
Well, talk to us 3 years ago, and you say that Zamazenta is one of the best mons in the format. We would look at you and wonder what happened.
Yeah.
And
this is after it got nerfed.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. I would argue it's less of a nerf, more.
Well, I mean, it got the Intrepid Shield nerf because it only triggers.
Yeah, but it was only because of Zacian's crimes.
True. It paid for those crimes, but it got a much better deal. So here we have team sheets. Hunter Braum is going to be running relatively stock. Calyrex Ice Rider, very strong option. One of the best in the format. I think both Calyrex forms are probably the two best single restricted options you can have.
I like the Terra Grass on the Cali Ice there because I can see like a Terra Water Amoonguss giving a lot of trouble to a Calyrex Ice. And yeah, that just makes you immune to the sport. You just got to look out for opposing Cali Ice.
Yep.
And on Austin's side, we have a Necrozma Duskmane.
Yep, Necrozma Duskmane. Interesting Scarf Annihilate. Umbreon. Umbreon occasionally shows up in restricted formats. Can't
really good into Cali. Just really good bulk as well.
Yeah. It takes hits like nobody's business. So it looks like we are getting into team preview. So does anything stand out in this matchup to you?
The elephant in the room is the Necrozma Duskmane to me. I actually didn't catch the team sheet in time. I didn't see if that was Trick Room on DM.
I believe it has Trick Room. It's Trick Room Clear Amulet. I believe is what it was.
Because usually one of the best things that it's good at doing is into like the faster matchups. You can just have a really bulky amount of Trick Room. Prism Armor cuts the damage that it receives from super effective attacks by 25%. So it gets deceptively bulky there.
For sure. Also, double Pelipper. Pelipper actually is one of the best answers into Calyrex Ice Rider itself, specifically just because it doesn't get hit by high horsepower, and you can wide guard off of all of the Glacial Lances and stuff. So
an interesting thing to note, though, is that Hunter's Pelipper is Terra Stellar.
Yep. Very good just for the extra damage boost. Austin's is going to be Terra Ghost. Both of them are Focus Sash. So
I like one to stop the feint. The other, I think, is... I like to look at this as... both of them? Okay, no. Only one of them has the Urshifu. I like the Pelipper Urshifu combination because it lets you... The power the Pelipper can provide, especially on Hunter's Terra Stellar Pelipper, lets you threaten a really big...
It's just a ton it's a ton of instant offense, which is very, very good. So we see leads come out, and it's going to be Calyrex and Amoonguss versus Annihilate and Umbreon. Incidentally, both of the leads for Austin have the terrestrial type of grass, so they are able to generate some mind games with being able to try to potentially go around the Amoonguss or ignore Spore.
I think I'm looking at the field and I'm seeing that like the Amoonguss lead with the Cali there is one of the best things he could have done, because obviously you see the Calyrex there, you see big restricted, and Annihilate just has a button where it's just like, hey, I can trade with you.
Yep.
Really good call on Hunter to bring Amoonguss in the front, because this means that you cannot just click Final Gambit so freely.
Also, Umbreon is just very, very good in these leads. Just being able to take hits so you're not as punished by Calyrex just deciding to click Glacial Lance. So we see a Rage Powder come out from the Amoonguss. Annihilate's just going to U-turn out. That is into Rocky Helmet Amoonguss, so that is neutralizing some of the effect of potentially a later Final Gambit. But the pivot pressure is still very, very strong here. So we will see what Austin is going to opt into here.
I think that's the best thing he could have done there besides hard switching, because hard switching would have absolutely opened him up to being red with Spore.
For sure. So that is going to be the Necrozma Duskmane coming out. And we get a Trick Room on the Calyrex. Now, notably, the Necrozma Duskmane actually does not have Trick Room, but it is Terra Grass, so it is going to have some amount of game into the Fungus. So we will have to see.
This is going to be a situation where I think we might see some potential for Prism Armor to show exactly what it does.
Yeah. The Necrozma is just generally a pretty good wall into the Calyrex, just because you're able to shrug off, at least 25% of the damage that Calyrex is going to be trying to deal.
And like neutral high horsepower, like yeah, it's 165 attack, but we've seen with something like Cartana in the past with like, what did that have, 183?
180, yeah, something around there. It has a very, very high base attack.
Even like, yes, it's a neutral hit and everything, but like the coverage moves aren't always going to be as strong as you think.
Yep. So we do see the Terra Grass come out from the Calyrex. We see a Spore go into the Umbreon. Umbreon's going to go to sleep, and it's going to begin churning those sleep turns because it's probably going to be one of the next to move. We see Glacial Lance come out from Calyrex Ice, dealing a very good chunk of damage into the Umbreon. The Umbreon is leftover, so it's going to be able to recover up a little bit. And we see a Photon Geyser come out from the Necrozma, dealing super effective damage and just knocking out the Amoonguss.
That's actually really good.
Very, very, very strong read there. Photon Geyser, I believe, is a 100 base power psychic move.
Yes, I believe it's whichever your attacking stat is higher is what it scales off of.
Yep. So that just ends up being a lot of damage, and clearing out the Amoonguss just cuts off a lot of the pivoting power of this Rain team from Hunter.
Not only that, but also you stop Amoonguss being the slowest mon on the field also means that it just can almost freely click Spore into something if you get the Trick Room up.
Yep.
So that's a really good KO there to grab.
Exactly, because then you would have gotten into a format where you might have had to Trasselize to try to get around Glacial Lance, and if you're trying to do that, then you're open to getting Pollen Puffed or whatever the Amoonguss might present. So we're going to see a Protect come out from the Necrozma Duskmane, just trying to probably just let this Umbreon recover up a little bit. We're going to see another Glacial Lance come out. That's going to be another good chunk of damage into the Umbreon. But it's going to be able to barely just hang on. And the Umbreon wakes up.
Ooh, turn 1 wake up.
And a Snarl is going to come out. So that's going to really, really slow down the damage output of this Raging Bolt, which is Assault Vest, so it does not have any damage boost or anything. See an attack go into the Protect. Umbreon will churn leftovers, and that's another turn of Trick Room stalled out for Austin. So
if I'm in Austin's situation, I agree checking the Trick Room timer here.
Yep.
One of these turns you kind of have to either get the Umbreon off the field or Protect. You do not want Chilling Knight to proc here.
Yeah, you don't want to just feed free knockouts for the Calyrex, because that's one of the ways that Hunter can get back in the game easily, is if he farms a free KO off of something. And then all of a sudden this Calyrex, while it's not dealing a ton of damage neutrally to everything most of the time, once you start to get to +1, then the damage can become really, really punishing. But we are going to see the Umbreon just go ahead and take the hit here. Necrozma shrugs off most of that damage. It's very, very bulky naturally. But we do see that Chilling Neigh proc for the Calyrex Ice Rider. We'll see a Thunderbolt come out, deal a little bit more damage. That's actually a pretty good reasonable damage. Oh, we get a 10% paralysis.
The paralysis is kind of weird because you still have one more turn of Trick Room, which means the Necrozma, I think, is the slowest thing on the field now.
Yep. Oh, we see a crit.
Well.
We see a crit come out. That's a bunch of extra bonus damage on the Calyrex, which actually, now that paralysis is in play, if the Necrozma is not paralyzed on its last turn of Trick Room, you may be able to look at, that adds another layer of complexity to this, where if that hadn't been a crit or if there hadn't been the paralysis, then things would look very, very different.
So we technically have like the team sheets here. I'm looking at that. There is a non-zero chance that this Necrozma does actually underspeed the Calyrex now.
It is possible. It really just depends on how the trainers have the Necrozma is trained. Since it's not a Trick Room variant, it's not necessarily going to be the fastest thing, or they may not have a ton of speed invested. But the paralysis is a big variable. So we'll just have to see what's going to happen. We see the Terror Orb activate, so we're going to see a Trassalization come out from Austin. It's
Electric on the Raging Bolt.
Yep, Electric Terror Raging Bolt. So that's going to shed its ice weakness, so it's going to be able to deal a bunch of bonus damage with its electric moves. And we get a paralysis. So, that's kind of how that goes sometimes. So now this Glacial Lance is going to come out, and that's a ton of damage. Wow. Yeah, once you get that +1, then you
just
get
snowball.
Yeah, and now the Chilling Nay is at +2, so this Calyrex is going to be dealing a ton of damage. We'll have to see how much this Dragon Pulse does, and it is going to knock out. Okay, so the critical hit beforehand did end up making a big difference there, because otherwise that Dragon Pulse would not have knocked out likely, assuming it's a relatively standard set. We do get the Volt Switch out. It's going to be a little bit of chip damage, but all that adds up, especially when you're looking at Thunderclap Mind Games. One thing to also note is that was the last turn of Trick Room, and Austin's Raging Bolt did go first there.
I actually really like the Volt Switch here because you know that the Annihilape's in the back. This lets you get the damage in on the Raging Bolt. This lets you pressure a Fake Out, and more importantly, because the Intimidate procced while it was still in the middle of a turn, you're not actually triggering Defiant here.
Yep. So, and typically a lot of Scarf Annihilapes are not actually going to be attempting to deal that much damage.
Their main goal is usually to just click Final Gambit and just trade with like a higher value mon.
Basically, and that's also what the U-turn helps facilitate. Is if you don't have a high enough target or high enough value target, then you just work around that. Oh, but we see a critical hit Fake Out, taking out the Raging Bolt. So now we're going to have to see what the Annihilape is going to do in this situation. And it's going to be a close combat into the instant.
It doesn't even pick up.
Yep, because of the fact that most Annihilapes don't actually attempt to deal that much damage usually. We're going to see and with the close combat drop, that's going to be a lot of damage.
Yeah, usually if it's Final Gambit Ape, you usually see the training be done towards speed and towards HP.
Yep.
Because you want to hit your Final Gambit as fast as possible and to get as much HP out as possible.
Yep, you just want to try to accelerate the game with as much damage as you can. So that Thunderclap, since the Annihilape was going to be locked into close combat, Thunderclap comes out, knocks it out, and that is going to be game 1 for Hunter Braum. So standouts in that game, obviously the Thunderbolt paralysis inside of Trick Room into the instant paralysis was a big deal. But so what kind of adaptations are we going to be looking at for Austin? Because I honestly think that his game plan into that matchup was not that bad. What do you think?
I think the luck that happened on the Necrozma was a little bit unfortunate. I do think he played it in actually a good way to try to like still take advantage of getting paralyzed. Like there was an opportunity that presented itself to him.
Yes.
Unfortunately, just the 1 and 4 did not line up in your favor.
Yeah.
I think the plan was mostly solid. I think what you want to do though is you want to pressure an Amoonguss on lead immediately. I wouldn't be surprised if I see something along the lines of I could see something to deny the Calyrex. Yeah, the Calyrex probably. I could see Pelipper coming in the lead on Austin's side to
just to harass the Calyrex down and try to make it a little bit less efficient.
Oh yeah, because you can just click Y guard there in that scenario. Alternatively, I could also see Raging Bolt coming in if on Hunter's side, if you actually are expecting the Pelipper to come in now, because I mean, it's Y guard.
Yeah. And one of the best things you can do against Y guard is just single target stuff down, and Raging Bolt is very, very good against Pelipper. Which is one of the things that Hunter has to account for, is that, or that Austin has to account for, is that Hunter does have the Raging Bolt to cover for his cover for the Pelipper, which otherwise would be a pretty annoying tool in this arsenal. But we do see the Pelipper coming out, so let's see. It's going to be same leads for Hunter. It's going to be the Amoonguss and the Calyrex Ice Rider, and we're going to see Pelipper and the Necrozma Dustmane. So instantly, things that stand out to me is that the Amoonguss is very heavily pressured here, both by Hurricane and Photon Geyser. But this type of switch does make a lot of sense.
I see that the Amoonguss is Terra Dark as well, so if you're really feeling that you're going to get Photon Geyser in that slot, that's always an option worth considering if you're very sure that they don't have Fluttermane in the back.
Yep. Another thing that Austin might be able to do then is cover, since he knows it's Terra Dark. It's Terra Dark with no Protect, so Sunseal Strike is also a reason to this. So we'll just have to see. But honestly, I don't hate the board position for Hunter. But we're going to see a switch out of the Calyrex, and that's going to be, I believe, that's the Instant coming in. All right.
I can see this being Sunseal Strike into the Calyrex because Pelipper can, I think, just. Austin's the one with the Ghost Pelipper.
Yeah, Pelipper with Hurricane is still going to deal a good amount of damage. And the Calyrex wasn't doing a whole lot there. But we do see Hurricane go into the Instant. That's a good read. That's a very good chunk of damage, and then we see Photon Geyser go after the Raging Bolt. That is a lot of damage.
That's a really good play on Austin's side.
Yep, that ended up working out very, very well for him. Hunter now has a position that he is probably a little bit happier with, but he did take a lot of damage to get his switches in.
Yeah, I mean, you have the priority that you can threaten with Raging Bolt here. You have the fake out. I think from Austin's perspective, I agree with clicking the Hurricane into the Calyrex slot, because there was always the possibility there that you just double that slot and account for the Terra and just get rid of the Calyrex immediately.
Yep.
I think splitting your damage there is in a good spot, because the worst thing that could have happened there is the Amoonguss Terra Darks, but then it gives up the Terra to do that, which means your end game would be a lot easier once you get rid of it.
Yep. So we're going to see the Pelipper switch out into the Umbreon, a Protect from the Necrozma, and a Volt switch out. Now, one thing to note is, looking at the team sheets, neither Pelipper actually carries the move Protect. Both of them have opted into running Tailwind. Typically what you've seen in regionals beforehand was Hurricane, Weather Ball, Wide Guard, Protect. Both players, again, have a skewed Protect, so we're going to see a Volt switch out to the Pelipper slot that couldn't Protect, and now we have Calyrex in. Overall, I think Austin should generally still be pretty happy with his position.
I like Austin's position here.
I think that the Necrozma is putting a lot of pressure down. Its fourth move is Brick Break, so it does threaten a little bit of damage into the Ensign, and then also obviously both of these Pokemon are going to be threatening big damage into the Calyrex.
I think the more notable thing that Ensign can do here is it threatens a burn on the Necrozma, and Brick Break will not pick up. I mean,
that is true.
You saw Annihilate Close Combat didn't, so
yeah.
Yeah, good luck with the non-same type attack bonus coverage move into the Ensign.
True.
Like,
even just being able to get down some amount of damage, it really just depends on the trait. We did see the Necrozma Protect before, so now we see a Calyrex Protect, see a Photon Geyser into that slot.
I think that had to have been an Amoonguss swap he was calling.
Probably, yeah. That or a Terastallization. Foul Play also covers for that acceptably, so very good Protect on Hunter's part to get himself back into the game, and we do see the Will-O-Wisp. Yeah, we get the Will-O-Wisp come down, the Necrozma. The difference between Necrozma and Calyrex Ice Rider is the Necrozma doesn't get free damage boosts every time it knocks something out, so even if he was able to farm a KO, that Necrozma is really not going to deal that much damage. I don't know the mechanic between Photon Geyser and being burned, so even
I think it would, if I recall correctly, Photon Geyser operates off the raw stat, and burn is actually a damage modifier, not a stat modifier.
Okay, that's kind of what I figured, but I wasn't exactly sure. Regardless, even if it was working off of special attack, Hunter still has to be very, very happy with his position now.
Oh yeah, you just softened up the restricted on the other side.
Yep, and Austin's team really does not have any physical damage profile otherwise, so something like the Raging Bolt is actually going to also threaten a lot of endgame viability. As we see a couple of swaps, the Amoonguss is going to come in, see a Foul Play go down into the Calyrex, big damage, but it is going to live that, and it's going to get a Trick Room off.
And now you have an Amoonguss that's threatening Spore into either slot.
Yep. The Umbreon should still feel reasonably safe right here, specifically because the Pelipper has Wide Guard to protect, but then the Pelipper also has to worry about going to sleep itself.
I think that's what you're gonna have to worry about the most, is like if the Pelipper Wide Guards, then the Calyrex can't attack for one turn, but then you put the Wide Guard to sleep, which means Calyrex can just do what it wants.
Yeah, so Hunter should feel reasonably confident about their position, but obviously you still have to actually execute in Trick Room. So we're going to see a Protect come out from the Calyrex, Wide Guard come out from the Pelipper.
I think that's the bird going to sleep.
Yep, I do believe we are probably going to see the Pelipper is going to go to sleep, and that's big because the Pelipper used Wide Guard. It already moved before it went to sleep, so now it hasn't taken a sleep turn this turn.
Ooh, but the Yawn into the Amoonguss.
Okay, but we do see a Yawn come out, so that's a way to kind of force the Amoonguss to try to position around.
The problem if you're in Austin's position now is your Raging Bolt in the back could probably pick up a KO on the Calyrex with the Terra Electric Thunderclap. The problem is you can't get the Raging Bolt into position now. If you were wanting to get that Raging Bolt into position, your best bet was going to be to swap that last turn over the Umbreon, but
Yeah.
Um,
Obviously, a lot of difficult reads.
Oh, yeah.
It's easy for us to theorize from up here in the booth.
There's a reason why they're out there and we're
yeah,
up here.
Yeah, exactly. So we are going to see the Umbreon switch out. Let's see what's going to be coming in.
Oh no, wait, that's the Necrozma.
Yeah, that is the
I forgot that was. I forgot.
Yeah, which actually is a really interesting swap as well because it is something that actually does blank Spore.
Oh yeah,
by
burned.
yeah, by value. Obviously it's a little bit of a Pyrrhic victory there, being burned and everything already. But we are going to see a Terastallization come out from the Calyrex Ice. Just trying to, sustain a little bit. We get a Pollen Puff down. And Calyrex Ice is one of the best possible recipients of Pollen Puff just because of its unbelievable raw natural bulk.
It's actually crazy how optimal its stats are. It's like what, like 120, 130 base defense, and then like 100 base special defense on top of a pretty good HP stat too. So it's just like,
it is phenomenally bulky. And especially with these Trick Room variants where you just want to sacrifice speed for bulk, you just make it as tanky as you can, and then so we do see the Amoonguss go to sleep. That is the trade-off for getting the high-value Pollen Puff, is your Amoonguss does go to sleep now. But I think that's a trade that Hunter is willing to take because it still churns a Trick Room turn. He got a bunch of damage down on the Pelipper. The Necrozma is still going to be burning for a while. And again, it doesn't have any recovery or anything.
I think if you're in Hunter's position right now, I think the best thing that could be going for you is if your Calyrex had a second life.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't have a Palmont here to actually use the Revival Blessing.
No, we
the
don't.
next best thing you can get.
Yep.
An extra half of your HP bar when it comes to a Calyrex, especially on ice, like you were saying.
Yeah.
With just how bulky it generally is.
It makes such
genuinely feels like a second Pokemon.
Yeah. It makes such good use of any extra HP and defenses. So we do see the Amoonguss is going to switch out. That means, notably, it has not taken a sleep turn yet. However, we do get the instant in for positioning. Clear Amulet will block the Intimidate, but the burn is still obviously very big. You see a high horsepower come out, Prism Armor doing some work to keep it alive.
Oh, yeah. If that was a Solgaleo, that was just gone.
Yep. So we do see a little bit of traded damage. The burned Photon Geyser dealing a little chunk of damage to the Calyrex Ice. We see another burn. And the Pelipper has now taken, I believe...
I think you have to click Wide Guard here to even have a chance.
Yeah.
If you're Austin, I think you're probably gonna end up losing the Necrozma here. And you need the Pelipper to wake up so you can block any sort of Calyrex attack.
Yep. Now you
can at least block the Glacial Line so that the Pelipper can help protect.
Now one big interaction is Wide Guard and Fake Out are the same priority bracket. Typically outside of Trick Room, Pelippers are going to be out speeding, so they will be able to utilize their Wide Guard before they get faked out. However, if we're still in Trick Room, unless this is a very slow Pelipper and a very fast instant, as we're going to see here, it is not, we're going to get that Fake Out.
Which is just a double KO.
Yep, which means this is just a double KO. So the Calyrex is just going to be snowballing very, very aggressively here. Necrozma goes down, Pelipper goes down. That's going to be +2.
And then your back is what? Umbreon, Raging Bolt?
Yep, it is going to be Umbreon. I believe Raging Bolt was shown already. I don't believe we've actually seen the fourth. At this point, it's going to be difficult to tell.
It is Raging Bolt.
Yeah, it is Raging Bolt. That makes the most sense. That being said, this is going to be extremely difficult to overcome. We're probably going to have to be looking at multiple Draco Meteor critical hits. Notably, Trick Room is over.
Oh, if Trick Room's over, yeah, the Calyrex I think is going to protect here. You're gonna I think soften down the Raging Bolt because it has the most damage potential into this.
Yep. And you're also just going to be able to get the Amoonguss in, so that way you are able to just
pull all the moves away.
Yep, just make sure that you're not going to have to take a Draco Meteor, because that is one of the ways that Austin could get back into the game, is if all of a sudden the Raging Bolt just does its best Miraidon impression and just starts blowing everything up with Draco Meteor.
Oh yeah. Or if it just has the built-in self-Dragon Cheer, where it just it starts critting those Draco Meteors. Oh, this one actually has Dragon Pulse.
Even a critical hit Dragon Pulse. So basically, if it just critical hit every single move, it could get back into the game. We will see a Terra Electric come out. So let's see how this turn is going to unfold. We do see a Protect from the Calyrex. Makes sense. You just don't want to take too much damage. But we do see a Thunderbolt come out, meaning they targeted around that.
How much of a Miraidon are you? Okay, you pick up the KO with that one.
Yep, it got there. So the instant is going to be knocked out. And let's see what the Umbreon goes for. It was just going to be Foul Play into the Protect. So that makes sense. So we're going to see another Leftovers churn for the
the Amoonguss is asleep, so it actually can't
That is actually true. Okay,
It actually can't Rage Powder here because it never took the sleep turn.
Yep, and it has not taken any sleep turns. Okay, so actually,
this position's not as bad as we thought originally.
Yep. Well, this is workable.
In the booth, we can't be opinionated, but this position's not as favorable for Hunter as we thought.
Yes,
is the best way to put it.
This is a big breath of life for Hunter. So obviously, it's still 2v3, but all of Hunter's big carries all have damage down on them.
The other thing too is like that Hunter's Raging Bolt does not have a boosting item, whereas Austin's has Terra Electric. So
and so
with the Mons in the back, you can it's going to be resisted.
One of the big important things is saving your Terastallization means you don't get chunked down by the Draco Meteor here. So we see a Dragon Pulse come back out. That is going to knock out Hunter's Raging Bolt.
I think he's just confident in the foul play, just picking up the Calyrex here.
Probably, yeah.
Given what it did before. Oh, because the Calyrex is +2.
Yeah, the Calyrex is +2. The Calyrex is about to just get blown up. Yep, there we go. Okay, so that at +2, that is functionally super effective anyway. And we saw last game that a super effective foul play did a lot of damage.
Like 2/3.
Yeah.
I think it was this game because it got Pollen Push back
up.
Oh,
yeah. It was this game. So we see the Sleep Amoonguss come out, and actually that's a really good recovery from Austin to get back into this game.
Getting that Yawn off was actually so much more value than we thought it was.
Yep. So Hunter
we knew it was going to be good, but like...
Hunter made an aggressive trade in that he let the Amoonguss go to sleep. To trade off for that pollen, for the pollen puffing with the Calyrex, which was at the time was very, very strong. But Austin did manage to punish him for it by basically just being able to position around. Giving up the double KO to the Calyrex didn't end up mattering because the Calyrex never dealt damage again. Because it
because Trick Room off before it could actually use its quote speed or lack thereof to its advantage.
And especially with the Instant not allowing them to get back into Trick Room, it just ended up really working out for Austin. So, very interesting adjustments. Both players seem to understand, generally just how they want to play the matchup. So, it'll be curious to see if either player wants to change anything up massively.
I think this is a really good, interesting showcase that some of the other restricted legendaries, such as your Necrozmas, your Lunala, your the ones that you aren't seeing on a number of teams. A lot of the format right now of what you're seeing with Calyrex, both Ice and Shadow Rider, you're seeing it with Miraidon, you're seeing it with Koraidon, you're even seeing it with Zamazenta with Body Press, is that you're having a lot of Pokemon that either have immediate power that can just pick up something, snowball potential, or you're seeing something that just has the ability to set up instantly and just go with it.
Yeah.
In something like Necrozma, if you've noticed, the game plan isn't as straightforward. If you notice there, he was actually willing to take, he took the burn, and that ended up making the Necrozma immune to sleep later, which the Necrozma wasn't doing as much damage, of course, but it was, more importantly, it was, I think, starting to chip things down into range.
For sure.
And I think in that sense, it also means that in Necrozma, you can afford to play a little, I wouldn't say reckless, but you can afford to play a little bit more aggressive with trades with. Because its value is restricted. It's not as high. In terms of the damage peaks that you can get.
It has a very high floor but a very low ceiling relatively.
Yes.
So looking into the leads in Game 3, Hunter did change things up.
It's very much a Pokemon you don't need to exactly build your team around.
Yeah, but it does seem to do a very good job of covering for certain things that Austin, wants to deal with. So looks like we are going to see the Pelipper withdraw in the face of the Raging Bolt, which makes a lot of sense. And this looks like it's going to be the Umbreon coming out.
I feel like I called this before because I was like, yeah, this is going to be a Pelipper and Necrozma game 2, and I'm like, Hunter's adjustment to that
would just be Raging Bolt then.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so we see. So then we see a double switch, and now Hunter switching. So maybe we're
revolving door analogy.
Maybe we're gonna see all 4 switches, depending on how fast this instant is. But we do see the Amoonguss come in. Okay, so we'll get a slow switch. So we're gonna see the Raging Volt switch out onto the Umbreon, and we're gonna see something else come in to take its place. In this instance, it looks like he's going to select Calyrex Ice Rider once again.
I would say that's a really good position for you to be in right now because this is. This isn't exactly what the Game 1 lead was, but you have 2 Pokemon that don't exactly immediately threaten Amoonguss, so this Calyrex is getting Trick Room up. It's no ands if or buts about it unless he decides to protect.
So we do see...
Or he could just go for damage. That's another potential option too.
That is an option as well, because we did see the Calyrex was basically very comfortable just dealing good amounts of damage, not great amounts of damage, but good amounts of damage to the Umbreon and the Necrozma last game. Now we have Raging Bull in here. Raging Bull is going to have to Terrasilize if it wants to take a hit. So we do see the Terra Orb activate. That is going to be Hunter's Calyrex is going to be Terrasilized into the Grass type once again, shedding that weakness to Foul Play most notably. And
I think that's the most important thing here.
Yeah.
That's like the only thing that immediately threatens Calyrex.
Yeah, basically you just don't want to take too much damage immediately to the point where your opponent can pressure you down a little bit. Looks like Austin is going to be comfortable just pushing a bunch of damage into the Amoonguss. We see a Dragon Pulse and then a Yawn.
I agree with the Yawn there.
Yep, I do like that position. But we do see the Glacial Lance come out. That is going to be a lot of damage. We do see the Raging Bolt just gets knocked out. I think Austin may have misassessed the play that Hunter was going for, assuming that it may have just been a Trick Room setup.
If I were in Austin's position, I agree. I think that would always look like Rage Powder Trick Room.
Yep. But Hunter, it's one of the testament to why Calyrex Ice Rider is so good is the fact that it operates inside and outside of Trick Room. So sometimes you can just click Glacial Lance, and if your opponent takes too passive of an angle, like not Terrasilizing their Raging Bull, they just end up getting punished extremely hard. That being said,
you shoehorn this Pelipper basically into, it's almost kind of locked into clicking, Wide Guard here if you don't want any more damage to come up, because if you don't Wide Guard here, this Calyrex is not going down to the Foul Play at all.
Yeah.
You're gonna basically just see, hey, this Pelipper might just get KO'd if it. It's Sash. It wouldn't get KO'd, but
it wouldn't get KO'd, but
the Umbreon would. It would get +2, and then it's just a snowball from there.
Yep. So basically, Austin was going to be looking for the Amoonguss to either protect or not to either protect and let the Amoonguss go to sleep, or let the Amoonguss switch out. In this case, the Amoonguss is going to switch out. We do see a Hurricane come in, but that Assault Vest Raging Bull with the resistance is going to take that very, very well. Foul Play, hedging for Calyrex, maybe trying to get cheeky and attack. But honestly, Hunter should be pretty happy with this position right here. We do see another Leftovers churning for the Umbreon. So the Calyrex is a little bit pressured, but honestly, the Raging Bull does such a good job of covering for what the Calyrex doesn't want to see.
Oh yeah, and even still, you've chunked so much of the team now at this point where, if you catch the Umbreon on field without the Pelipper to Wide Guard next to it, then all of a sudden Calyrex can just threaten another KO and just start snowballing again. You're in the same position as before, but with less Pokemon.
Yep. And then with the Raging Bull,
I actually agree with switching it out here, because I think one thing that actually goes a little bit too under the radar is sometimes it's actually worth not getting too attached to your boosts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're still going to be able to deal a lot of damage when it comes back.
I mean, it's still 165 base attack.
Yep, and you still end up getting a lot of extra tempo and pressure with the Incineroar coming in, because now, again, the Pelipper eschewed Protect for Tailwind, so we're just going to see a Hurricane come out into the Incin. Very, very good chunk of damage. But now we're going to see the Raging Bolt get to launch an attack, knock the Pelipper down to its sash, and pivot out. So honestly, a very, very good trade for Hunter here. Obviously, the Umbreon move is still pending. But
I think this isn't too bad of a position, because I believe Austin still has Terra on the table. So if you're in Hunter's position, you have to read the Terra potentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a multiple layer read if you're going to try to get this turn right.
We do see a Foul Play come out, and the Incineroar is going to eat that pretty reasonably well.
I think this comes down to, do you think, one, the Incin's going to fake out, or it's less that the Incin's going to fake out. I think it's always going to pick out the Pelipper. The Pelipper has to Terra here. I think it comes down to, do you think the Calyrex protects?
Yeah.
And if you think the Calyrex protects, you can Hurricane that slot, but then it could just be, the play could just be dead to a Raging Bolt swap like what we could be seeing here.
Basically, it just kind of depends on how aggressively Hunter wants to play this. The more aggressively he plays, the more he could try to close it out sooner. But you do open yourself up to counterplay or being outplayed, or just plain bad RNG.
I mean, I think if you remove the Pelipper off the field at this point, I do think this game is just over.
Probably, yeah. The Umbreon is just probably not going to have enough damage, especially in against Terra Grass Calyrex. So we're going to see the Raging Bolt come out. We're going to see a Terrasilization, which is probably what Austin has to do, assuming this is going to be Terra Ghost Pelipper. which makes sense. However, that also means that later in the game, it will also be susceptible to high horsepower Calyrex. So part of its niche of being able to completely wall Calyrex, or nearly completely wall Calyrex, is kind of voided. But when you're this far behind, you kind of just have to see what you can do to make it work. So we see a Weather Ball come out. That is going to knock out the Ensign from that range.
I agree with the play because I feel like the Calyrex swapping there was always going to be obvious, be it to either sack the Amoonguss or to... I don't think you would sack the Amoonguss in that scenario when Raging Bolt just tanks it like a champ.
Yeah, like it would be risky because like you could also just click Hurricane into that slot, and then that would punish an Amoonguss switch in pretty badly. As is the turn, so the turn went well for Austin. However, given how the game is still very
in Hunter's favor.
Yeah, the game is still very uphill. Mainly just the Raging Bolt is going to be difficult to clear.
At this point now, you can just click Thunderclap into the Pelipper, and the Pelipper can't do anything.
Yeah, it can either switch out, and like the thing is like you can also spore into that in the both slots reasonably well because now
I think DM swaps in over the Pelipper.
Yeah,
exactly because of Thunderclap.
Yep. So now you've also, since you forced the Terra on Pelipper, now the Terra Grass is not an option for either of the other two remaining Mons. So Amoonguss is kind of in the clear here, barring a raw Hurricane, but we are just going to see a Weather Ball come out for a little bit of damage. Raging Bull is going to Volt Switch into the Pelipper, knock it out, and it is also going to get a pivot
That's going to be hard switching to Cali. He could actually be reading that. He could be reading into the Volt Switch angle because if this is Cali coming in, and you foul play that slot, you chunk it for a decent. Well, it's at full health. You chunk it for about like a third.
Full health, not super effective. It's still going to be very, very difficult. But we could also see something like a Yawn come into the Amoonguss here. We'll find out here in a second. It's going to be a Snarl. That's not going to be particularly effective. Obviously, knocking the Amoonguss down a little bit is fine. Amoonguss wasn't really exactly an offensive stalwart anyway. It goes for the Spore. That part is not affected by the Snarl, so...
I think the more important thing in this scenario, though, is that the Umbreon's asleep, so you're not threatening you're not threatening the double up on Calyrex now.
Yep. So now it's basically just, until the Umbreon wakes up, it's Necrozma versus the world. And the Calyrex can still just kind of keep spitting out Glacial Lances, and it's going to deal enough damage that it should be able to generally knock stuff out.
I think if you're in Hunter scenario, I think you can just set up Trick Room very simply here. You just trade your Amoonguss for it, and then all of a sudden you have a Calyrex, the slowest thing on the field, in Trick Room.
Yeah, and then the Necrozma is also going to struggle to deal relevant damage to the Calyrex as well, just because of its unbelievable raw bulk. So we do see a switch in of Amoonguss, or Amoonguss switches out, Raging Bolt switches in.
Ooh, and that's a huge survive.
It's a big survival. It takes a lot of damage. Umbreon is going to take a sleep turn, get a little bit of leftovers recovery, and we are into Trick Room now.
Importantly, now you have two Mons that can threaten the Necrozma now before it can actually do anything, because if you don't want to lean into the speed here, I think they're actually about similar speed. I want to say they're 77 base speed.
Yeah.
Both of them might be.
They should relatively be the same speed, especially with Tailwind being on both teams. It makes me think that both Mons are going to have some amount of speed investment. Obviously, they're not the fastest things in the world.
I think if you're in Trick Room, though, I think you just want to just click Thunderclap, just because unless the Necrozma clicks Protect, if it clicks Protect, it's not doing damage, and then you're just waiting for the Umbreon to wake up.
It is also possible that the Raging Bolt, that Hunter is okay mostly just sacrificing the Raging Bolt. We'll just have to see. Obviously, it didn't go for Thunderclap here, so we're just going to see a big Glacial Lance come out. We do see the Umbreon wake up. And that's going to be a Snarl. That is going to knock out the Raging Bolt. Okay, so the Raging Bolt does get knocked out.
I think the Raging Bolt is probably going for Thunderbolt into the Necrozma.
I would assume it was either going to be that or a Volt Switch out. So we're going to see a Photon Geyser come down. That's actually pretty reasonable damage. The big thing is that the Calyrex survived the turn, obviously. So now the Amoonguss comes back in.
I think what's going to happen here, I think losing Raging Bolt for Hunter's endgame really wasn't a problem at all, because even if this Umbreon protects here, you just put the Necrozma to sleep.
Yep, you threaten Spore.
You threaten Spore Glacial Lance.
If you want to read a Protect, you can Pollen Puff yourself. Obviously, that opens you up to a little bit riskier counterplay. But honestly, Hunter should still feel reasonably advantaged, but the game is obviously not over at all right now, especially with the Umbreon getting the one-turn wake. So we do see the Umbreon go for a Protect.
So it might be a double here to stall Trick Room.
Yeah, it might. Yep, it is just going to be a double. Very good call. So that being said, now the Amoonguss is kind of going to have free reign to do whatever it wants the next turn. Obviously, if you allow the Necrozma to attack, you're going to be risking a Photon Geyser return fire. But it could be that Hunter is okay with that. He could also just threaten Spore, and Spore is obviously one of the strongest moves in the game. The Calyrex is basically going to be free to go for Glacial Lance here because it should knock out the Umbreon from this range based on what we've seen so far.
I think the big thing is going to be here that even if it ends up being... I think what the play is going to end up here being from Hunter's side is I think it's just going to be Glacial Lance and Spore again because while you're still in Trick Room, nothing's stopping you. It's actually on Austin to react to this.
Yep, so we do see a Spore come out.
Even if you didn't click Spore there, even if something happened in such a way where Trick Room expired, the Necrozma would not be able to KO the Calyrex in time. Before it has to take repeated attacks, and then from there wake up.
Okay. So we do see the Spore come out. We get a sleep turn. We get a +1 onto the Calyrex.
And that's just high horsepower.
Yeah, now we get single target high horsepower. The Necrozma does have a potential angle where it could wake up and protect or double protect.
This could also...
This is going to be a lot of damage coming out, assuming the highest horsepower hits.
Yeah, I was going to say, there could also be a 5% miss here that could complicate the game
We do get the side high horsepower, or the side Pollen Puff, which is going to buy Hunter a lot of time. And we do see the high... we see the highest horsepower come out. That is going to knock out the Necrozma. That is going to wrap things up for Hunter. That is going to be a 2-1 win over Austin. Very exciting match. A lot of counterplay, a lot of adjustments from both players.
Oh, yeah. I think this is still a great example as just like Calyrex Ice is a mon you absolutely have to respect.
Yep, it's going to deal a lot of damage. It's going to take a lot of hits. It's going to set Trick Room. And honestly, Hunter did a very good job of understanding, you know, his role in how the tempo of the game was going and being able to position, you know, even at certain points when he would like switch out a +1 Calyrex, you know, just understanding that the positioning of getting the Incineroar in that turn versus, you know, versus trying to potentially put out damage but open yourself up to worse counterplay. You know, he understood his role and the roles that his Pokemon needed to play and executed on that very, very